Welcome back into the Alabama Football Report. I am Tom Downey. The transfer portal window is closed, so I wanted to break down who Bama lost and who they added. I don't think the departures will change. Technically, there's a window in which if the player didn't announce it, he could still submit the paperwork, and it doesn't have to be processed announced yet, but that seems unlikely across the board, especially at Alabama. So 21 departures I feel pretty confident in. 18 additions for now. Would not be surprised if that number continues to bump up at least a couple more depth potential targets for the Crimson Tide. As of filming, knowing stuff's going to change, Alabama is ranked 44th in the On3 transfer portal rankings, which factor in both the losses and the additions. So I want you guys to grade Alabama in the transfer portal this year. A, B, C, D, or F. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Let's begin with the losses, and one last time they get to have the Bama backgrounds behind them. Richard Young, the running back, transferred to Colorado. He was one of the last guys to actually find a spot. The first guy who actually hopped in the portal, I believe mid-season, Aeryn Hampton, heading to Oregon State, which is fitting given their head coaching hire. Jalen Mbakwe, the first of several players heading to Georgia Tech from Alabama. I still think he might have been better off playing corner, but he wanted to play wide receiver. Jalen Hale, who kind of stinks to lose him. He's talented. He just couldn't stay healthy. Going to SMU. Hopefully he stays healthy. Best of luck to him. Cole Adams heading to Vanderbilt. Can he become more than just a punt returner? And then probably the loss that, man, that one stings more than anybody else. Isaiah Horton, who felt like, I was a little surprised he hopped in the portal because he had a good year for Alabama coming over from Miami. I think it's the portal, so there's tampering everywhere, but I think that was very clear tampering from A&M. Seems like they knew they were going to lose the Cam Coleman battle and pivoted to somebody else instead. So Horton leaves A&M. Did Alabama get better or worse in the transfer portal? What do you guys think? Be honest with me in the comments section of today's show. B for better, W for worse. Might come down to how you feel about the offensive line change, and there's a lot of it here. Rock Montgomery heading to Western Kentucky. Joseph Ionata, again, another Georgia Tech player over there. Olin going to Kentucky, where he might start, but he wasn't going to start at Alabama, frankly. More offensive linemen. Another Vanderbilt piece. Micah DeBose going there. Wilkin Formby going to Texas A&M. A&M might view that as a big get. I'm not sure Bama fans view that as a very big loss, however. Double A heading to Northwestern, as all these guys that's out of Rock Montgomery heading to Power 5 programs certainly feel noteworthy there. Keon Keeley, who kind of been phased out a little bit on defense, heading to Notre Dame, as maybe ends up being a better fit for the Fighting Irish on defense. One of several defensive players to also transfer to a top 10, top 15, whatever, top 5 program. James Smith heading to Ohio State. Kelby Collins, who had transferred in from Florida last year, now heads to South Carolina. Kind of a trade that we'll get to almost later on in the video. Jordan Renaud, one of the last players in the portal for the Crimson Tide, heading to Ole Miss. Of the losses that Alabama has sustained in the transfer portal, I think I'd vote Isaiah Horton, but you can argue one of these defensive players. Who is the biggest transfer portal loss? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Noah Carter heading to Georgia Tech. If my CFB 26 dynasty is anything, becomes an absolute dog at Fresno State for an online dynasty I was doing. But he goes to Tech. Quay Rousseau heading to Ohio State. Once again, reuniting with James Smith. The BFFs stick together there. Cameron Howard, again, one of the earlier portal entries on defense, heading to Boston College. Cameron Calhoun also going to Ohio State, where I would not be surprised if he ends up being more of a depth piece in the end. And then the only player to not find a new destination is a long snapper, and does that even really count? That's David Byrd. We'll see if and where he ends up going, but he does not have a destination at this point. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. The big game is almost here, and there's no better way to cash in during America's biggest sporting event than Prize Picks, where it always feels good to be right. And since the big game is right around the corner, that also means it's your last chance to get into the football action before next season. Close out the season right with Prize Picks by getting $50 instantly in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. There's also, of course, the college football championship coming up later tonight. This is our Prize Picks lineup for it. Carson Beck, less than passing yards. Elijah Sherratt, more than a 2.5 receptions. That's just the Goblin line. It's easier to get. And Fernando Mendoza, more than 223.5 passing yards. With the new social feeds feature, you can share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Prize Picks also has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. So if you haven't already, go to prizepicks.com/CLNS. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Let's head to the additions, the ones maybe you guys care a little bit more about. Noah Rogers, who will bring receiver 4, receiver 5 help for a very much overhauled wide receiver room. Coming over from NC State, where he was productive enough. The NC State offense at times, I think correctly, very much ran through their tight end, who was really good, Justin Jolly. I think Rogers will be a nice depth piece for the Crimson Tide and help out a room that needed more bodies. Josh Ford was the stunningly early addition because he actually left Oklahoma State after the coaching change. He only played in 4 games in 2025, but Bama kind of quickly targeting him. I guess they wanted another tight end named Josh. I do tend to trust DeBoer and co. Like, they got a lot better play out of Josh Cuevas than I thought they were going to get. Maybe Ford can be that next version. A preferred walk-on addition here, Jaxon Shuttlesworth, coming in from Jacksonville State University. The offensive line undergoing significant change this offseason. Caden Strayhorn, the offensive lineman from Michigan, one of 2, by the way, was a freshman this past year at Michigan. Only played 94 snaps, actually started, I believe, in the bowl game for the Wolverines. Could be a center option, one of 2, I think, center options for the Crimson Tide. The other Michigan addition, Ty Haywood, kind of like the opposite of Keon Keeley, where it looked like Keeley might go to Notre Dame, goes to Bama. Haywood was committed to Bama for a very long time. Didn't play much at all this year. It ends up being a redshirt year, technically, for Ty Haywood. He's got guard ability. He's got tackle ability. In general, this offensive line is going to face a tremendous amount of competition. And Haywood could battle at several spots on this offensive line. Racin Delgatty coming in from Cal Poly. I think this is a center option as well for the Crimson Tide. Strayhorn and Delgatty could very well battle for that role. Given his size limitations, I don't see a necessarily great option in terms of like instant impact. I think there's going to be some competition there. I don't think there's a locked and loaded piece given the competition jump for Delgatty, but he'll fight for a spot. Nick Brooks coming over from Texas after he started several games for the Longhorns, in his true freshman season. It just wasn't very good. But this is someone that Bama was very much after in the recruiting process, which indicates to me that I think they can better maximize him, relative to what they had shown previously on that front. So Brooks, one of the 4 or 5 offensive linemen that had come in for Alabama in the transfer portal. I think will potentially compete at least for a starting spot, or at least key depth role there. Then there's another guy I think is probably more in line to be a backup this year. That's Ethan Fields, who also profiles more as a guard. Of note, Brooks was a tackle recruit, but played guard for Texas. He didn't play that much for Ole Miss, 63 snaps, so we can't read too much of the sacks, hits, hurries. Although Nick Brooks did struggle very much, especially against Kentucky last year. In terms of what the offensive line looks like, I don't know. This, maybe? I think Mike Ware's going to start somewhere, but is it a guard or tackle? Guys like Brooks offer guard, tackle flexibility. Haywood, the same thing. I think ideally Jackson Lloyd wins the left tackle job, but you've got like 9 guys, if not more, fighting for those 5 spots. Only thing I feel confident is Carroll starts somewhere. We're going to have you guys covered here on everything going on around the Alabama football program. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. YouTube.com/RuleSide Got you covered here on the Alabama Football Report. Go to the defense here. Devan Thompkins, the defensive lineman out of USC, who will compete for one of the defensive line starting spots, and maybe that there's some bandit upside there as well. But he did some decent stuff for the Trojans last year. 31 tackles, 6.5 TFLs for a group that lost so much up front. Getting, I think, a likely starter in Thompkins means quite a bit. Kedrick Bingley-Jones is going to be one of the dirty work guys for Alabama. And in general, I think you're even seeing it in why guys left the portal. Unless you're playing that wolf role, there's a lot of dirty work you do. You are not going to be a double-digit sack guy. It's just not what you're being asked to do in the defensive front system. So guys like Bingley-Jones, who didn't do much as a pressure guy, well, if you'll clog lanes and absorb double teams, that can work for you. Caleb Smith, who did not play this year for the Huskies, transferring back home to Alabama, where he's originally from. This again strikes me as someone that the Crimson Tide coaching staff liked coming out. They wanted to get him. He goes to Washington. By the way, Bama to Washington is a pretty far away from home. I think maybe is a undervalued recruiting profile there, given that these are two Power 4 programs that have had plenty of interest in him. Then the big one, literally speaking, is Terrance Green, the defensive lineman over from Oregon. I wonder if he would have hit the portal had Amari Washington not gone back to school. That would have been Green's, I think, likely job at the nose guard spot. Instead, he hits the portal. I think Bama has a new nose guard option there. Competition, a lot of it, there's like 15 defensive linemen now on this team. But I think Green's in line to play a key role. Who is the biggest transfer portal addition? Biggest, literally, is Terrance Green. I'm talking more impact side of it. Who is it? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. A couple more additions here. Desmond Umeozulu, I think, is really intriguing. I think maybe does some bandit stuff for South Carolina. I think could do some wolf stuff as well if you want to go like the run heavy look there. But he has one more year of eligibility left, hit the portal, quickly ends up at Alabama. I think they have a role for him in mind to be impactful up front for a defensive line that needed it. Very intrigued by Caleb Woodson, the linebacker transfer from Virginia Tech. Bama's losing a lot at the linebacker spot, and Woodson is a multi-year starter for the Hokies. This past year wasn't nearly as good, bit banged up. I thought Sauce showed some really promising stuff back in 2024. I think this is a name to monitor because I think there is NFL upside with Woodson. I think one of the bigger additions here. Carmelo O'Neal coming up from Mercer. Mercer, by the way, like low-key was good relative to, that level of competition. I think this is a depth piece in the secondary, which returns almost everybody and should be really good next season. So I like that pickup there. And then special teams additions. Lorcan Quinn is the new kicker out of Marshall, the Irish lad. Had a very good season for the Thundering Herd. And then two walk-ons. Adam Watford, who was at North Alabama, maybe literally walked over. Kidding, but it's not that far for him. And then Ethan Stangle is the new, I think, potential long snapper transferring in from Syracuse. Both Watford and Stangle, by the way, are preferred walk-on additions.